Welcome to Pure Hustle Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're here for another Monday mini-sode.
Yeah, so our Monday minis are where we get to talk about a specific topic for a shorter amount of time. But make sure if you like our content that you, one, subscribe to our channel. But then also every Wednesday we have a longer form podcast, at least an hour long. I think we got one coming up. It's like almost an hour and a half. Every Wednesday on YouTube and wherever you can get your podcast needs met. We're there. You can find us there. Just search Pure Hustle Podcast. But today we're talking about being shadow banned on eBay.
So what brought this up was we got an email. So if you ever want to email us, you can always email us at purehustlepodcast@gmail.com. And they had discussed about this whole idea of shadow banning. Now, we had talked about this on our previous, I think it was a themed episode, our last themed episode. So check that out. That was episode, I want to say 345. But, somebody had said, I know that shadow banning isn't a thing, but this is what I experienced. So let me read the email and then we're going to kind of, reply to that. Right. Yeah. We haven't done a Monday mini. So this
is like an open letter response to this question. And I think that's a good way of handling it because if you clicked on the title because you're like, oh, shadow banned on eBay, maybe I've gone through the same thing. Am I being shadow banned? And we want to kind of discuss where our thoughts are on that. Is that a thing? And what are some things you can do to make sure that you're getting those sales? Because that's really what it's all about. We want to make sure that our listeners, our viewers are making their sales on eBay and that they're turning the profits, that they're converting those sales. And is this shadow banning thing legit? And if so, how do we stop that?
So this listener wrote to us and said, so I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I ended and did sell similar on 10 items. I had no sales for 6 days. I've been reselling since last March, and this was my longest gap of no sales since that last May. I have 470 items listed. So when I saw this, my very first question, and this is for everyone, right? If you believe that, you're getting low sales because eBay is shadow banning you, which Mike and I, if you listen to episode 345, we're very clear that eBay would not want to shadow ban anyone, and because they want to make sales, right? They want to make profit, and they're not going to spend the money to keep your items on a server if it's not going to benefit them. But if the only thing that people are doing, right, is ending and so similar, chances are your items are not going to end up higher on a search after a long while because eBay likes activity, and the activity that they like is listing consistently.
Yeah. I mean, that's the number one thing they want. And just so you're clear, if you're like, what is this ending and sell similar? So we've promoted the idea, and other people have as well.
eBay told us.
And eBay has told us specifically that after a period of time, specifically 90 days of an item that has been on your store, but hasn't had a lot of activity, hasn't had offers, hasn't moved, begins to become stale. It starts to go lower and lower in the search, algorithm. And that's not what you want. So we've advocated for the procedure of ending items that you have listed and then doing sell similar. So instead of just relisting the same item, maybe making some adjustments, specifically things like prices and maybe pictures, in order to make sure that your item is competitive, kind of boosts it back up to the top. Now, we specifically advocate for the items that have gone beyond that 90 day. Now, if you're just doing 10 items, the human nature is to say, hey, I did this thing on eBay and I seem to have this consequence. They have to be connected. And we're here to say that maybe this one thing you did isn't actually what's causing this. And there may be some other things that eBay is looking for. And like Orlando said, listing consistently is going to be the king.
Now, I want to reference, the person that wrote this email. They're probably watching this. I'm not directing this towards you.
No,
this is an open letter
common concept
for everybody. So number one is, are you listing consistently? The second thing is, do you have best offer on, right? Are you accepting offers? Are you sending offers? Right? Are you just, you just have the set price, and in this kind of economy, like set prices, unless you have something that's in high in demand that people want, people are going to want a bargain. They're going to want a deal. And so they may see a certain price and they may go, you know what? I would have bought that, but only if it was like $5 cheaper or $10 cheaper or whatever it is. And so I encourage you, right? If that's the case, right? If you feel that sales aren't coming through because you're being quote unquote shadow banned, and maybe you're not listing consistently, or you're not offering a good deal, right? You're not throwing it out there. Hey, send me a deal and maybe I'll accept it. Or let me send you a deal, right? And so maybe you have your set prices and you see in your app that there's, 100 send offers and you're like, I'm not going to send any offers. Well, that's going to hurt you because eBay has set up that send the offer option because they want you to send the offers. They want you to close those sales so they get their final value fees, right? And in the end, you're selling through stuff.
Yeah, you got to look at what is eBay getting out of this, and eBay wants the sales to happen. They want you to sell an item so that way that they can get their profit off of it. They want their cut. And so when you are, I'm just looking at these numbers specifically because this is the email that came in, but whatever your numbers are, whoever's watching this, consider it for you. But if you do this for 10 items, you got 470 items listed. This is a very small percentage of the items that you actually ended and then did sell similar. So it's not like you made a huge impact on your store. I can see if you ended all 470 and did sell similar, that maybe that could mess you up in the algorithm based off of
that would rock a store.
Yeah. So we're not advocating for that for sure. When I've done this in the past, I've done it where I would do about 10 to 20 a day of the end and sell similar because I'm doing all of the ones that have gone 90 days. But the next point that we want to make kind of goes along with this is when you do that end and sell similar, sometimes you can keep it the same. But a lot of times you want to make micro adjustments if possible, because if something has sat for, let's say you've got 470 items and of the 10, maybe you did, and maybe over half of those have been up for over a year. So you've got over 230 some items that have been sitting for a year. And maybe those 230 items that have been sitting for a year, maybe when you bought them, you looked at the comps and this item was selling for $100. So that's what you listed it for. But since you've listed it, the market has changed and now those are selling for $70. So you don't need to do complete market research on every single item, but it's a good idea to do some adjustments. Maybe you need to bring your prices down. Maybe your shipping is a little too high on some items. Maybe you've learned how to ship a little cheaper since you originally started listing these items a year or 2 years ago. So if you can make those adjustments, and one of the things that I did, and now it's a lot easier because eBay just has the built-in feature of removing the background. So most things you're listing now, at least that first item is going to have that nice clean white background. Not that that's absolutely necessary, but it can look nice for that first picture for sure. For me, when I was doing the end and sell similar, anything that I had that didn't have that first picture with that clean white infinite background removed, I did that. I just took the time to remove the background on just that first picture, at least on the 8 items that I ended and listed and sold similar that day. So make sure you're making some adjustments. Maybe it's the pricing, maybe it's the picture, because if you listed something and the price is still too high, just ending it and relisting it is not going to help you sell that item. Now, it might help it get it back to the top if you were already competitively priced, but maybe it's been listed too long. So your competitors who are listing more recently are higher up on the search engine. Maybe that's all it's going to take for you to sell it. But maybe you need to drop the price 10%. Maybe you need to adjust the shipping. Maybe you need to change the picture. So making those micro adjustments is going to make an impact on those. So if you're just doing 10 in a week, it's probably not going to make an impact on your store. So it could have just been a slow week because maybe you didn't end those 10 items and you still this would have been the slowest week you've had since May. So you really got to make sure that this isn't the only factor playing in, but if you're going to do this, do it consistently, do it for several days. Make sure you actually have some data to say, hey, I've done this for several weeks. I've got all of my items up to recent within 90 days, and I've made adjustments where I need to make adjustments.
Yeah. And maybe your listing is competitive in price, but it's not competitive in what it offers. Right? Maybe you don't offer free shipping. Maybe you need to. Maybe you don't offer expedited shipping, and maybe you need to. Maybe you don't have returns, and all the people selling the same item, they offer returns. And so buyers are going to go where they feel confident, they feel safe, they feel secure, and they're not going to choose that item. So I encourage all of you that are doing end sell similar, like Mike said, take a look at your price, take a look at your pictures, take a look at your policies that are set up. Maybe that's what's hindering the sale. And then when you do that, end listing and sell similar, and you start those new listings, then you'll see conversion because you've changed what matters in the listing. And, this other thing is it's not talked about, but, are your seller metrics in a place where people can trust that what they buy from you is what they're going to receive, right? Is your feedback at a place where, it doesn't have to be 100%, but I encourage you to be in the upper 90s. right? Do you have, as far as your seller metrics, are you making sure that you have no cases that are closed without seller resolution, meaning that you have fixed things with the buyer and you do not receive a transaction defect? Because those kind of things will bring you lower. You could do and then sell similar all day, but if you have a negative feedback rating or you have transaction defects, it may not matter. eBay may still push your items lower in the search because, again, they want to sell items that people feel comfortable with and that they are not going to be always returned or it's going to lead to negative feedback. So make sure, basically, if you're a top rated seller and you're doing and then sell similar, eBay will favor your items over others that are at below standard and so on. So make sure you keep that in check.
Yeah. And the number one thing beyond anything else is...
This is a tough one.
Yeah. Are you actually sourcing what people are buying? And the hard thing is, as economies change, as trends change, you may be picking up really good stuff when you're picking it up, and then that trend has changed. Maybe that's no longer popular. Maybe that style isn't in style anymore. Or maybe based off of the economy, people aren't looking for the really expensive Pokemon cards anymore. Now people are looking for used work boots because they're trying to save some money. So you really got to make sure that you're buying what people are selling. And one of the nice things, there's nothing wrong. 470 listings, that's a great number. I feel like when I was at 500, that was like a really sweet spot for me. And a lot of times people can even have way less than that and do well. One of the nice things, even though Orlando and I have kind of shifted, if you don't just need to have 10,000 items listed in order to do well, but the more items you have listed, the more likelihood of, if you've got some collectibles and some needs and some, different categories,
hot items,
then as trends change, as the economy changes, you're at least going to have a percentage of your store that people are looking for. So don't get discouraged, because I've seen countless times, and again, it's anecdotal, but I've had a really bad week. I've seen people say I've had the worst week I've ever had on eBay. I've had the worst month. And then the very next week or month is the best. And when you're looking at it over the course of a year, you really start to see that the trends are, it's pretty average, or maybe slight increases or decreases. But if you're looking at it like, hey, if you're trying to go hour by hour, minute by minute, it's really hard. It's like a person who gets on the scale every hour to see if they've lost weight. That's not the way you want to do it, right? You need to have more data that you can look at over a larger period of time. And maybe after not just a week, but after a month, after 3 months, if you still see that, hey, I'm trending down as opposed to staying the same or trending up, then you really can start to be worried and make some adjustments. But I think it's in our nature to want immediate change. And if we see negative change immediately, to think that, hey, it's the end of the world, I've done something that's ruined it. But it could just be that, it was just a bad week for you in that 1 week, but next week will be great. So don't get discouraged. Don't get disheartened with one bad week, and make sure you've got everything else in place. And maybe you do. Maybe you have all these 5 things, and it was luck in the sense of people just weren't buying those things this week, but next week, that's what people are looking for. So,
but definitely make sure that you are looking at what you're sourcing. Use Therapy if you have an eBay store. Try to see, are people really buying these items? Because what happens as a reseller is you get so used to being in a certain niche and you're always buying in that, right? And you did really well, right? So the example that everybody always gives is Tommy Bahama, right? Tommy Bahama was really hot for a while back in, I want to say 2016, 2017. It's been that long ago. And now it's kind of making a comeback, but people just aren't buying Tommy Bahama anymore. Robert Graham was another brand that people would buy. Alan Edmond shoes, like all these different things. And so, maybe you're watching some YouTube videos and there's a new seller on there and they sold 1 pair and they're saying these are hot. And so you went out and you bought 10 pairs and now your store has all these items that people aren't just buying at this moment in time. So definitely check and make sure that when you're sourcing items that have great sell-through rate. That means that more items are being sold than listed, or at least it's equivalent, and making sure that there's good profit margins, because all that's going to play a part, because, just picking up something that it's sold once may not sell that item. So I encourage everyone, if you think you're being shadow banned, right? You did the end and so similar, and that rumor has spread like wildfire, and I still see it. And you're saying, oh, I must be shadow banned and that's why I'm not getting sales. It's not because of that. It could be for multiple reasons. It could be you're not listing consistently. It could mean you're not offering the deals that people are looking for. You're not maximizing your listings. Maybe you need to fix your seller metrics, or you just need to really reflect on your item and go, am I really selling what people are buying? And then the myth of the shadow ban will go away. With that being said, make sure to be real,
Be relevant,
and be reselling. Lates.
Peace.